Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Byron Craig, and welcome back to The Creative Mind. I said that out of order. That was weird, but whatever. Today, you're in for a very special treat. We're going to Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, ladies and gentlemen. My favorite city in the world, Brooklyn. Actually, Manhattan's my favorite city, but we're right there. We're adjacent neighbors. Okay, anyway, off my little horse. Today, on today's episode, we have a yogi practitioner. He is the owner and founder of Noir Yoga in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. He is the first doctor that we've had on this podcast. Not the last, but the first. He is one of my greatest friends. He is my brother. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Dr. Mason Mason.
Byron! What is going on, my brother?
My brother. A name so nice, he got it twice. Mason Mason.
And then you know what? Your favorite city is New York City, which has 5 boroughs: Manhattan, Brooklyn, Staten Island, Queens, and what am I forgetting? Bronx. There we go. So,
Bronx, yeah.
Yeah, so Brooklyn, your favorite city, I can be a part of that. We can be a part of that. BK in the house.
There you go. I love it. I love New York so much. I can't wait to go back. It's it's ultimately one of my favorite places in the world. I don't know. There's something so electric about the city where you're just like, there's nothing like being there. So
the energy here is unmatched. I've been here almost 7 years now. Can you believe that?
Jeez. It feels like an eternity. Time
flies. And this is home now. This is home. I don't see myself going anywhere else. Like I can go visit, but I found a home here, especially in Brooklyn, especially in Bed-Stuy.
I love that. It's home.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously Texas is not home for you. Home is Ohio.
Ohio. IO, go Bucks.
Hey, go Bucks.
You know, I tell folks I am a Midwesterner at heart, Ohio. I have Southern sensibilities from Texas. And now that I'm in Brooklyn, I'm living a New York state of mind.
Hey, that's the way to be.
Yeah.
Just as long as you don't get that BK attitude. I mean,
you know, the yogi side of me, I don't think it'll let me.
It's all peace and namaste and all of the Srinivasas and everything like that.
Yeah.
See, I know a little something about
yoga.
A little
something. I need to get you on the map when you're in New York. I'm gonna get you and the whole fam on the map. It's gonna be great.
Bro, let me tell you, I am nowhere near flexible. Like I do the Apple Fitness Plus version of it, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. It hurts.
Here's the thing. Yoga requires flexibility in the mind, not the body. Flexibility is simply a benefit of practicing yoga.
I like that. All right. Okay. Well, so I haven't said it yet, but I'm appreciative that you are here. Greatly appreciative. Dude, this is going to be so awesome. I have so many questions and just want to talk about just your journey. I mean, you have a doctorate in education, yet the thing that fuels your passion for education is you doing yoga. It's what you've been doing for the last, I don't know how long you've been doing it.
Yeah, I've been practicing on and off for the better part of 20 years. I actually started practicing yoga when I was at Ohio State, my very last quarter on campus. You know, I was just looking for another class to kind of fill my schedule. And I chose a yoga class, and that was my first introduction to it. And nearly 20 years later, I'm still going. I really started deepening my practice about a little over 7 years ago, prior to moving to New York City. And then just been really going on a journey the last couple of years. So it's been really super cool. And you're right that where I find harmony in body, mind, and spirit through yoga, it helps me with everything else in life.
That's awesome. Like I, mindful meditation is something that I know some people do, but I personally, whenever I am at my most stressed, I will turn on just a mindful meditation on like Apple Fitness Plus or or I guess it's called Happier now, the Happier app.
Yep.
Man, like I don't know, just there's something about just laying on the floor, just kind of laying with your eyes closed and just hearing like silence and then just taking in breaths and just letting them go where you're like, huh, I feel better after this.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw back in October when I did Mason's Mindful Minute Challenge for 31 days in October. One of the things
Yeah,
I
I
tried
did.
to show is how you can find just those small moments of mindfulness, no matter where you are in the world or in life, on the go, through breath work, through movement, through meditation, and just taking a moment for yourself. And it makes a world of difference. It can make a world of difference, especially in those most stressful times.
Of course. Like, I don't, we were talking about it before, like me getting in a car accident and finding out today my car's not ready. I mean, that part is so stressful. And I'm like, oh, it's more money. And I'm like, I want to, I needed to sit down. So I just kind of tuned out by watching a TV show, but before we hopped on here, but I'm like, it probably would have been more beneficial if I would have just done some breath work or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that deep breathing and then just really focusing on the breath. In Sanskrit, your pranayama, it's your life force. But it does so much for us. It allows you to focus. It allows you to heal. It allows you to calm down, and it does wonders for your nervous system. And it is oftentimes overlooked. But if you think about maybe when you were in elementary school and maybe you were crying or maybe you were angry or you were upset, and you remember back then the teacher would just try to get you to calm down and simply breathe. It's the same idea. Finding that moment to breathe when life is rough and even times when it's not rough, because that consistent practice will help you in the long run too.
Yeah. Now, I'm genuinely curious. I mean, and maybe you may not know this. People who have anxiety and have panic attacks, does that breath work? I mean, because obviously, when you're in the throes of a panic attack, telling someone breathe, that's not gonna help. They're not gonna breathe. They're gonna be like, but like when you are, like when you can get to that point, you pierce through whatever kind of anxious moment they're having. Do you find that, or I mean, again, like I said, maybe you don't know.
Yeah.
Does it help that breath work, or just saying, just inhale deep breath, slow,
Mhm.
like what is it? Is it 4-2-1? Is that what it is?
Yeah, there are actually a number of different breathwork techniques that you can use. There's a 4-4-4. There's a 4 in, 4 out, or there is sometimes it's good to have a longer inhalation. No, sorry, a longer exhalation after an inhalation. And so there are lots of different methods that you can use. But to answer your question, I do think that there is research in science that shows that, especially like during an anxiety attack or when tensions are really high, if you're able to manage your breath, you can get yourself out of it. But much to your point, it may be really difficult in the heat of an actual panic attack where someone else is telling you to breathe, to heed it, because you can't hear anything but what's going internally with you and the anxiety at that time. It's important to know the practice and know the techniques before you get to that point, because then you can subconsciously, oh, I need to stop. I need to slow down. I need to breathe.
Okay, so that makes sense. Not so somebody like, I don't know, an 8-year-old child who's having an anxiety attack, probably telling them, do your 4-1, do your 4-4-1, 4-4-4. They're gonna be like, what? What is that? I don't know what that is.
So it's interesting you mentioned children. I've been thinking a lot about, especially post-pandemic in education, focusing on young people's social and emotional well-being. And I think about the practices, the tools, the techniques we learn from yoga, including meditation and breathing. If we bring that to young people and we give them these tools to use, it can help them out. And so I think about some work that we have actually going on shortly here in Brooklyn, where we're going to be partnering with the school system, partnering with young people and their teachers, and bringing this practice into the classroom. And maybe these are tools that they can learn now and use for the rest of their lives.
Oh, that's very awesome. That'd be something transformational. Is that going to be just elementary school, or is that all?
Yeah, funny enough, this is an early childhood center. The director came by the studio shortly after we opened, and she said, I would love it if you could bring this practice to my students. And so she actually has 5 campuses, and it's a pre-K campus. And so we're talking pre-K 3, pre-K 4, pre-K 5. So our youngest learners getting this techniques as a foundation for life. I think that that's really amazing.
Oh, at 3, absolutely. 3, 4. Because I mean, you're one of my favorite words that I learned last year was having a regulated nervous system. Like that part, that I strive on the daily to have a regulated nervous system, and I can feel when my body's outside and dysregulated. Oh,
yeah. And it's tough. It's tough sometimes. And right now in the world that we live in, I have a feeling it's going to get a little tougher before it gets easier.
Probably. I would probably assume so. Politics aside, it's crazy out here in these streets.
It's crazy out here.
Yeah.
And life be lifing.
Ooh, life be lifing. That should be the tagline of this podcast. The Creative Mind. Life be lifing. Yeah. But like, we've been going. We ain't even really introduced you. We're just on the train, just going. So like, please tell the world, like, who is Dr. Mason Mason?
Man, I want to try to give you the succinct version of who I am, but like most people, it's nuanced, it's layered, it's complicated, as am I. But at my core, at my heart, like, I am an educator. I'm a yogi, and I'm a technologist. And so I have this unique intersection of passions, things that fuel me, things that give me purpose. And the reason for kind of waking up and do everything that I do is really driven by those 3 intersections of who I am. We talked a little bit about where I'm from. I think that has made me who I am, being from Cleveland, Ohio, really coming into adulthood in Texas for over 11 years. And then now being here in New York City for the past 7 years, I pull from all of those backgrounds and experiences, and they really make me who I am. If I think about family, I think about myself as a son and a brother. I'm the oldest of 8. Have a fraternal twin brother, and I am more than a brother to my siblings. I am a mentor, and I'm someone who hopes to inspire them and to inspire something different for them in their lives. I'm a friend to a lot of people across the intersections from my time in different work environments. And now I am a business owner and an entrepreneur. It's another kind of quiver I can put in my bow, for kind of the skill set and what I'm able to provide. And I call this one of my passion project. This is like a new side quest for me. And it's something that I get to pour my heart into, and it's that hard work that's come to fruition. Because I thought about this for a long time, and bringing it to reality, it's been a dream come true. And I continue. I walk up to the studio and I pinch myself. This physical manifestation that came out of my head, it's real. It's here. We've created community. I have 15 employees that work with me to build that community. It's mind blowing. So that gives you a little bit of kind of who I am.
Of course. That's crazy. Open for less than a year or 1 year?
Oh my God, less than a year. We're approaching just the 6-month mark. And it's been an amazing journey, You know, it was April of last year where I sat at this desk and I began to envision what this could look like. I started a business plan. I got a tax ID number for the business. I got some of those official documents to kick off this journey. And I began to kind of roadmap what should this look like over the course of the next 3 years. And I'll tell you, everything that I've planned has already come to fruition in less
Man,
than
look at
6 months.
God.
Only
Look at
God,
God.
only
Only
God. And
God.
I'm humbled and honored by the blessings that have been bestowed upon me. But faith without works is dead. I've definitely put in the work to get to where the studio is. They were sometimes every single day since April, I was working on something for this business. Now it's about at least once a week. I'm dreaming up new ideas of what this can look like and how do we continue to make it better, because this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning.
Absolutely. 6 months in, 15 employees. That means the business sheet that you sent me had, 1,000 plus rotating, 1,500 plus monthly members. Man, that in and of itself shows you the desire in New York of people wanting to get out there, practice doing doing yoga, doing the mindful meditations, just having community in essence.
There, when you think about, and this is something I've been able to reflect on it a little bit, because as an entrepreneur, you have to find a gap, a need, and then that's where you come in to fill the need. Because I've been thinking about entrepreneurship for a long time. I think about the things I love. For example, I love coffee. I love books. I don't know. You can kind of see the reflection of all the books on my bookshelf.
Yep.
I've thought about, it would be really cool to kind of have this kind of hybrid coffee/bookshop where we serve coffee and lattes and some really cool drinks and maybe some pastries. And then we have a selection of curated books. But there has to be a need for that as well in a community. And you can go in, you can help fill that gap, because in a city like New York City, where there are over 10,000 small business and thousands of coffee shops, how do you fill the need and how do you stand out? And one of the things that happened here in Brooklyn for me as a practitioner of yoga, who was practicing daily sometimes, one of the things that I would do is I would get up, I would get in my car, and I would leave Brooklyn to go practice yoga. And there was nothing wrong with the studio I was going to, but I would get there and there were still things that were missing that I needed. And so I recognized that there was a gap for me that needed to be filled. I needed a studio that was closer for my commute. And I needed a studio that had the community that I was looking for when I got there. One that reflected me as a human, my values, my community, my culture. And I realized that if I can't find this in my community, maybe I should be the one to build it. And that's really how Noir Yoga was born. And this was more than 2 years ago that that idea came to my head. But I thought, before you can build this community, I have to deepen my own yoga practice. And so I wanted to do my own yoga training. So back in March of last year, I took almost a month off of work. I went to Costa Rica and I did my own yoga teacher training and got my certification and really began to deepen my practice. And once I got back, I'm like, okay, it's time. It's time to build this community right here where I live in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, and try to fill that gap, that need, the void that I noticed that was missing. Part of the reason that was the case was, the pandemic happened. Lots of studios in the neighborhood, they shut down and they didn't come back post-pandemic. And so there were a lot fewer options for yogis in the community. And so barring another pandemic, I hope to be here for many, many years to come.
Absolutely. I hope so too. Again, like I said, open 6 months, and the fact that you have so many people monthly committed, it speaks as a testament to what you're building and how you have built and rallied community. Because I personally believe that in the end of 24, I guess halfway through the midpoint of 24, going into 25, community has been like the thing that everybody is seeking and desiring. The pandemic broke us and revealed to us that we don't like being separated from each other and cut off. But now we went through a couple years where it was kind of like, a testing. Then we had inflation and everything. But now it's more like, okay, all that stuff is it is what it is. But I need people around me because life be life. And
Yes.
so, yeah.
It's funny because at the nexus of everything that we do, it is around community. Uh, our mission is to cultivate community through mindful movement, and to really be that third space for folks. That's not work, that's not home, but a place where they can be in community with others and they can focus on their well-being, and others who are on that same journey can be around them. And so I like to think that uh, myself and the instructors that work for Noir Yoga, they are all a part of this journey of community and well-being. And we really help make a positive difference for each of our stakeholders. And to your point, we were able to really quickly get a lot of monthly members. So we have 100+ monthly members, and then we have over 1,500 visitors who come through the studio every month who are a part of that community. So the community is strong, it's thriving, and it's growing. In 2025 and every new year, folks take a renewed commitment to their journey of health and well-being. And we're seeing that at Noir Yoga. We've seen numbers that have been stronger than ever. And one of my goals is, because it's easy to start a journey, it's more difficult to continue that journey. And I want to help these community members continue their journey past January, past the new year, new me mentality, and really make it a part of their lifestyle.
For sure. Absolutely. What do you, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, what do you feel? Because it like you said, it's easy to get people to just get the buy-in in the beginning. How do you continue to maintain that relationship even when you see people begin to fall off in they say what January 10th is like everybody just quits day? Like,
Yeah.
what do you see past? How do you get people to like bite down, be engaged, and go, I'm committed. At least you tell them, like, I don't know, give us 60 days.
Yeah, I think it's being compelling. And one of the things that I've noticed from community members is the feedback that they give us. There are a few things that they talk about. One of them was really surprising to me. They talk about the aroma or the smell of the studio. And so when we opened, I got some incense in the candle. I thought it would be a nice touch and a nice gesture. I didn't think it would be something that I would be continuing to do, but because the feedback almost immediately was that we like the way it smells. And so, but you think about our factory sense, our sense of smell, and the connections we make with experiences because of smell. I think we tap into something that makes it compelling. It's nice to go into a space that is calm, serene, and smells good. Another thing that they talk about a lot is the music. Playing music that they say, and you'll see this in the reviews. If you look at the reviews of our community members on things like Google, they talk about the music and the vibe. So it becomes compelling. And I think that that's part of how you help people stay the path, is because it's compelling. So you have a community of folks that look like you. I think that this is really important. It should not be understated that the studio is called Noir Yoga for a reason. Noir is French for black. So it literally translates to black yoga. It is a space, especially for people we don't often see on the mat, to come and be in community with each other. Now, it is for everybody, but it should not be understated. But we're trying to build community among the marginalized, among POCs, among those who may not necessarily have felt welcome in the practice. And one of the things I'm most proud of is that 90% of the instructors are people of color. That was one of the things I was missing when I was going to other studios. I wasn't seeing enough people that looked like me from my community enjoying the benefits of this practice, taking advantage of the benefits of this practice. And really, there are two things, and I was culpable to this frame of thought myself. I am not flexible, not in body, but I am flexible in mind. And when I started to understand that yoga is not just about the physical practice, it's not about just the asanas, and it's not just about exercise, that it began to click for me. Because when I was on the mat, I was able to really center not only my body, but my mind and my spirit. And I realized that, I originally came to yoga for the physical practice, but now I continue to come back for the mental and spiritual benefits of the practice. And I was like, those are things that I want to share with our community as well, because everyone can use this practice on the mat, but more importantly, off the mat. And
Of course.
to be a yogi, that means it's a lifestyle. I'm a yogi on and off the mat. It's how I live. It's how I treat people. It's not accident that last year I became a full-time vegetarian. I began to think more deeply about all living things on this planet and the role that I play in that. And I decided to full-time give up meat. That's a part of being a yogi. Now, I'm not out here to say everybody should give up meat. I know that that is really hard. I know that is really hard. But that was a decision. That is a decision that I decided to make for myself on this journey for.
Hey, I love it, dude. I applaud you because you do the Daniel fast every year, and giving up meat is tough. But I'm so enthralled with the aspects of, as you say it, the spirituality versus yoga within yoga versus, like, you hear people give the argument all the time. Oh, you can't really, like, do yoga because, like, if you're, let's say, a Christian, you can't do yoga because it interferes. You're worshiping the, I don't know, the god Ganesh and all these Indian rituals, and you're like, but I mean, obviously you've said it multiple times. There's a spiritual component that lies within it, but as believers, just the two of us sitting here talking, like, what are your thoughts and your impressions if someone was to, like, tell you that they walk in your store, like, you need to give this up because this is unchristian, like, blah blah blah?
So, I'm on day 18 of the Daniel fast, and this is my 16th year in a row where I start the new year doing the Daniel fast. And for some of your listeners who may not know, this is a Christian fast, a biblical fast based off of the book of Daniel, where you restrict your diet and you give up certain things so that you can draw closer to God. When I did the fast for the very first time, it was a really transformational experience. And I told myself, this is an experience that I want to continue to have year after year. And so I've made a commitment to myself every year for as long as I'm alive. I'm going to do the Daniel fast. And I am a Christian who practices yoga. And what I want the folks to understand is that there is a spiritual component to yoga, but yoga is not in and of itself religious. I think one of the misconceptions is because yoga is a very ancient practice and it came up alongside certain religions. And so folks coupled yoga with the religion it came up alongside. But that is not the case, especially now in modern yoga. And I would argue that yoga has made me a better Christian. If you think about the practices and the tools and what we learn from yoga, it has made me a better human being in so many ways. And I'll tell you simply, for me as a yoga practitioner, there are moments of calm, there are moments of peace, and there are moments of mindfulness when I feel closest to God, especially on the mat. Because what yoga allows us to do through the physical practice is to ultimately find stillness in our body and find stillness in our mind. And it is that unique point of stillness where you can connect with the source or a higher power or a being, and whatever your religion is, that's a moment where you can get closer to your God. And for me, as a Christian, it's where I can get closer to God, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And so that as a Christian who practices yoga, that's what I take away from that spirituality piece. And each individual is going to be different in how they connect spiritually to the practice, whether it's through nature or a higher being or God.
Yeah, for sure. You know, you said something really interesting there about in the stillness, more or less like along the lines of solitude.
Yeah.
Recently, for I don't know, for the last couple of weeks, I've been awakened in the middle of the night between now 1:50 at the earliest and like 5 o'clock at the latest, and it's almost a daily thing. And I just keep getting woken up. And I told this story on the last episode, but it was about, I woke up and I deleted all the apps off my phone, like all the like Instagram and stuff off my phone, because it was distracting to me. I this year I decided not to do the Daniel fast, just because my heart wasn't in it. And I knew that if I just wasn't going to give God half, I was just like, you know what, I'll limit the screen time on it, but I'm just not going to do it. Anyway. So I saw a video about Dr. Miles Monroe. He says, if you wake up consistently between 3 and 5 a.m., it's because the Lord is trying to tell you something. And between those 2 hours, that's in the world's perspective, that's when it's the most quiet. Nothing's really happening. You're at your body's at its like peak point where it's just still and it's just calm. And I'm like, I see, when you said that, it just resonated in my mind. It's like, oh, you using yoga on a daily basis to practice stillness and finding moments of stillness. And I'm asleep, and then I'm woken up, and then I'm having to lay in my bed, obviously not moving, but I'm laying in my bed with my arms lifted, just praying and just waiting to hear something from the Lord.
If you think about arguably one of the most popular poses in yoga, one of the most popular asanas is Shavasana. Shavasana is corpse pose. And that's one of those moments where you can find the most serene stillness. You surrender in body and go deep in mind. And it's very similar to, we're in Shavasana when we sleep, right?
Yeah.
That's when we're in corpse pose. And so that's when you're finding that stillness. And so there's a great connection and correlation there.
That's crazy. I've never put that two together, but that actually is one of my favorite poses. Not like, obviously we said it earlier, not super flexible, but laying on your back with your arms just outstretched, just taking in breaths. Yeah. There's something special about it. I love it. But that was a really great answer. I mean, now we can just clip that and then post that and say, here you go, everybody. Yoga for Christians. It can be done. Man, so what is it like being that entrepreneur? Like being an entrepreneur, I mean, I know that, but it's hard, especially when you have to keep creating things because you're ultimately creating for other people. But do you ever get the sense that you're just always constantly creating? Because again, you still also have a job. You're constantly creating. How does the creativity to go, all right, I'm doing this for my community, for my people. Obviously others can join, but it's like you emphasize this is for Black yogis. How does that correlate? Like the creativity of your mind go, all right, now what? We're successful. We're pretty successful. You've won awards. You've won like grand prizes. Like, bro, like it's not a common thing that's happening to you. It's a move of God. But like, I'm just curious about that mental state and that creativity.
It's so interesting. I find inspiration from so many different places. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. Very early on, after the studio opened, I literally was walking from where I live to the studio, which is about a 10-minute walk. And while I was walking, I was just thinking about when people come into the studio, a positive message that they could receive and kind of a play on words. And when you walk into our door, to the left is the main studio floor. It's where the mats are and it's where we practice. Nope, to the right, I'm sorry. And then to the left is where you leave your belongings that you don't want on the mat. And it's where you leave your shoes. And so during one of those early walks to the studio, I thought to myself, shoes to the left, soles to the right, SOULS. And it just come to me, and that and we do a lot of deep thinking when we shower, when we're walking. One of the other things, I was inspired recently. We just added a new class this January, and I am a part of some other studios and some other fitness things and some other kind of wellness communities. And one of those communities it's a HIIT class, high intensity interval training. And they have a class called HIIT Lab, which focuses on legs, abs, and butt. I was like, why can't we do a yoga lab where we use the practices of yoga, but we can focus on legs, abs, and butt? And I was like, no, I'm going to run with this. And I had an instructor in mind immediately to teach it. I ran the idea by her. She absolutely loved it. I drafted the name and the description, had it up in a couple of weeks, and we've offered it the last couple of weeks, and both classes have sold out. Wow. That was the creative process for bringing this new class to the studio. And we're testing it out, and it's already successful. So it may become a permanent class that we have. And then we have a few other things that are coming up, and some of them they're born out of collaboration. We don't have to create alone. And so I encourage all of my instructors to bring ideas to me for what we can offer to the community. And they'll bring them to me. And I was like, I like this. Let me play with this. Let me tweak it. Let me masonify it, if you will. And then put it out in the world. And like one of the things with creating a business is you're also creating a brand. And I am an Apple enthusiast, and I am a student of Apple, and I think about branding and marketing and storytelling and connecting those dots to it's how you want people to feel. And so when I create anything, at the core, I start with, how do I want my community members to feel when they purchase this hoodie that represents the studio and where we're from? How do I want them to feel when they come into the studio? How do I want them to feel when they land on our social media page? What messages am I trying to convey? Color is important. Tone is important. Context is important. Valentine's Day is coming up. Valentine's Day is on a Friday. Fridays are actually not very busy days for us. Most people like to go do other things on Friday nights, for example. And so I'm like, I want to do something a little different. It's Valentine's Day and Friday. And so I reworked the class. We're calling it Love in Motion. And whether you're single or with a partner, that Love in Motion class is going to focus on your heart chakra on Valentine's Day in the season of love. And I had an instructor in mind for that. I went to her, hey, what do you think about this idea for this class, Love in Motion on Valentine's Day? Thinking about our heart chakra and opening the heart and doing poses that focus on heart openings. And that's kind of how that idea was born. So I think about context, and I think I get inspiration from a number of different things. And then, those common times when we have ideas. And so I have a list that I start to jot down ideas. And so, because like you say, I have a full-time job and I can't immediately get to things at times. But then when I find those off-peak times, I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to knock some stuff out for the studio and come up with some stuff. And that was one of the things for when I had the Mason's Mindful Minute Challenge back in October. I really wanted to think about how can I help others find moments of mindfulness in their lives. Um, and then 31 days in October, a play on my name and the alliteration of the mindful minute. So it all kind of tied together and worked together. And then it's about, okay, now I need to write out a plan for what am I going to do for the next 31 days? And I go through that. And then I had themes for each of the weeks. And like, this week we'll focus solely on breath. This week we'll focus on mindfulness that is non-traditional. Like I even planned on doing one. I didn't end up doing it. There were a couple of ideas I had in my head, like doing mindfulness in the car. Because when you're at a red light, that's a perfect time to find a moment of mindfulness. And if we think about sometimes one of the most stressful times, especially here in New York City, is when you're in the car and traffic is crazy and you're stuck in traffic XYZ. It's the perfect time to recenter your body, to recenter your mind, and to be calm. Another idea I had, and I just didn't get a chance to execute on it, was I wanted to record on the train. You've been on the New York City subway.
Oh, absolutely.
It's crazy. And I feel like
insane.
It's in the news at least once a month, something crazy going on the subway. Facts. It's the perfect time for people to find calm and to find their center, because there's a lot of chaos in the world, and it's super important to find those moments of calm, even amidst the chaos. You can be the eye in any storm.
I agree 100%. Like, one thing that I do words of the year. So our church has a word of the year. It's planted, but my personal word of the year is, what's yours?
So it's so funny. I took a part of a movement manifestation event a couple weeks ago. And it was literally when I was on the mat that my word for the year came to me, because I've been like, I don't have one yet. And so when we finished our physical practice, I opened up my journal and I jotted down my word for the year, and it is blossom.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
I think of, and I was really thinking about the many meanings of what it means to blossom and what that looks like, and some of the correlations. And one of the things that I thought about is, if you think about plants, for example, they don't bloom and blossom all the time, right? And what do we have to do to get them to blossom? And I think about this year as a year where I really can begin to put in work, especially in the wintertime. This is a season where we prepare for the blossoming, where there is rest, there is solace, there is solitude, there is quiet, but there is reservation and rejuvenation and nourishment that takes place now to prepare for the springtime and the summertime, and to prepare for the blossom. And so I want my 2025 to kind of mirror that. I'm preparing for the blossom of 2025. That's in my personal life. That's in my professional life and everything. So my word of the year is blossom.
I love that. That's amazing. Like, especially the way you broke that down like that. Yeah. My word of the year is reset, because I just need a reset. Just full reset of thinking. And that's kind of where I've been these last few weeks, or at least these last few days for sure. Last few weeks maybe, but the days for sure. Just a full reset of just expectations, full reset of just my relationship with the Lord, and just everything. Reset of the way I parent and everything. So yeah, blossoming, because blossoming comes also with flourishing, which is a very interesting, because like you're at a time in your practice and in your career and in your entrepreneurship where you're building, and it's just a moment to flourish. The great and powerful Tim Ross said one time, he was talking about relationships, but I guess it can equate to life. Every relationship or every person's life goes through a season. There's spring, summer, winter, and fall. Spring, everything's great. It's amazing. It's beautiful. Things are blossoming, blooming. Joy, love is in the air. Summer, it's a little hot, but we having fun. It's a good time. Fall, it starts to, it's getting a little cooler, But then the winter seasons, they're just cold. They're icy. They're frigid. And I mean, obviously it is what you make of that season that you're in, but yeah, man, the way that you have flipped that and saying like, no, I'm preparing in the winter. I'm preparing for that's uncommon. And like, as always, you are uncommon amongst uncommon men.
You know what I was thinking about, because of our calendar year, January 1st, a lot of folks make these resolutions in the new year and they want to begin them on January 1st because that's the new year. Right. But that's the winter season. And if you think about the role winter plays in nature and naturally what happens in nature during the winter, that is not when new things start. Ooh. Right?
Ooh, we going deep now. Ooh.
Yeah. And so it is in winter that, think about bears, they're in hibernation. They're in rest. They've already stored their things. And now they're in a moment of calm, peaceful restfulness. They're preparing for spring. Spring is the new beginning. Spring is when things start. And so what we might have wrong is that we want to start in the winter because of January 1.
Of course.
But maybe we should be preparing for spring. And maybe when we cycle our resolutions with the seasons, we'll have more success. So instead of me trying to quit smoking cold turkey, maybe I prepare now.
Yeah.
And then as we enter into the transition of spring, I can wane off of something, or I can begin to start something new because I've already been doing the preparation for it. I am better prepared for this transition, for this change in my life that I want to make.
Man, you cooking with gas there, bro. that is an amazing. I'm gonna just institute that my whole life. That's an amazing outlook, because I had never, until you said it, I had never thought of it in that perspective. January 1st is always, I've always been of the mind like, all right, cool. These are my goals for the year. I got to start them January 1st, but you don't ever start things in the dead of winter. It's so hard. Spring, where it's nice and warm, at least in Texas, it's nice and warm. It's getting warmer out. You're more apt to want to begin to do things. I wonder if the world would change just that small perspective in their mind, how much more successful people would be in things.
Yeah, because there would be no more stress about, it's already January 9th and I haven't committed and I'm giving up because it's cold outside, right? We in single digits here in New York City. It's really hard. You're demotivated, and they call it sad season, seasonal depression, right?
Yeah.
Because of the weather, it plays a toll on us, and we have shorter days, right? The sun is going down before 5 o'clock. Like, that's really hard for people.
Yeah, of course. I don't want to be walking out my house at like 4:45. I'm like, it's dinner time, but it's dark out. I'm good. That's so interesting. Yeah, I think just that little shift of perspective, I know that's going to help somebody. Just that little tiny shift, because it's not even a big shift. It's just it's like resetting an expectation and moving it, instead of it like, I need it now, so by March the thing is already fully blossomed. Well, no, you can't do that, because the farmer who planted this for the spring had already been doing this in the fall. They had prepared and set everything up in the fall, waited through the rugged winter to get the blossom. That's good. That's real good.
One of the things I'm thinking about as we're talking, because like if you really know me in my life, I come from absolutely nothing. A mom who struggled. I'm a product of the 80s. My mother got pregnant with my twin brother and I when she was 15 years old. She had us at 16. She had to drop out of high school. We lived in housing projects in Cleveland, Ohio. We were on government assistance, welfare, food stamps, the whole nine. But if you think about the 80s, that's the height of the crack epidemic. And unfortunately, my mom succumbed to that epidemic. And she had to give up custody of us. She had to go on her own journey of healing. And she knew in order for her to do that, she couldn't take care of her two boys at that time. And so my brother and I, we were fostered for 6 years before we ultimately lived back with my mother. And so that gives you a little bit of my background. And even then, it was still really hard, right? We still lived in the projects. We still were on government assistance, et cetera, et cetera. And that was a cycle that existed generationally in my family. And it was one that I was trying to figure out, how do I break this generational cycle of poverty that exists in my family?
Right.
I didn't have a goal of going into the music industry. I didn't have a goal of becoming an athlete. But what I set my sights on was education. I realized that that could be the key to unlock the future that I wanted for my life. And so that's what I honed in on. I took it incredibly serious. I did not play around in high school. I did not play around when it came into my grades. Because the thing was, being not poor, we couldn't afford the O and R. I knew that I was going to have to get some scholarship money. And so my full-time job, my 11th grade year, was applying for scholarships. I applied for over 50. I was lucky to get not one, but two full ride academic scholarships, and I was able to choose one. That's what got me to The Ohio State University. I was lucky to graduate college. But it still wasn't hard, right? Then my mom moved my family from Ohio to Texas. I moved to Texas, new environment. And I was able to start my career in education. I started working part-time at Apple, doing those two things at the same time. And I really was able to start manifesting this love of technology and education and this intersection that I had. But one of the things Steve Jobs said, that we can only connect the dots in our life looking back. As I look back on my life and connected the dots, what I realized that allowed me to get to where I am today is that I had the grit to do it. And for me, grit is an acronym. It's having the guts, the resilience, the initiative, and the tenacity to make it no matter what. And so for me, I don't care how many times I fail, I'm not going to give up when I put my mind to something. I need to get a full ride scholarship, get the work done. But here's the thing. There are a lot of young people, especially in Gen Z, who think that automatically because they exist, they should get XYZ. No, you put in the work. That doesn't mean you're guaranteed it even when you do the work, but you don't give up, because that work will yield results. It may not be the results that you want. And this is something we have to realize too, because we go to God and we pray for things and we don't understand that He has a bigger plan for us in our life. And so there were certain things that I wanted in my life, and I started to put in work for them. And thank God I didn't get them. For example, in education, I thought I was going to become a school principal, go on to be a district leader, superintendent, etc. That's what I was praying for. And that's what I was putting in the work for. That's why I got my doctorate in education. But God said, hold up, Mason. I got other plans, because you have this passion for education and technology that can take you even further than you imagined at one of the largest companies in the world. And you can have an impact on an even larger scale. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, you own to something here, right? But I put in the work. I didn't give up. I put in work, and that work allowed me to get something bigger than I ever imagined. Back in 2016, when I was a high school teacher, I visited New York on spring break, and I was like, wow, I love this city. I'm going to live here. I didn't know I was manifesting. I didn't know what was coming from my lips to God's ears. He heard me 2 years later I get this new job that moved me to New York City.
Yep.
It's like, wow. So having the grit to envision something, then go after it. You falter, you fall, you stumble. There's hurdles, there's obstacles, there's backsliding, there's missteps, but you don't give up.
Yep.
You keep going for what it is, and you may get it. You may get more than what you imagined, or you may get something that you didn't even have any clue that was in the works for you because you never gave up. One of the things I see a lot is that people say, oh, well, I didn't get that. It's not for me. I'm done. And they give up.
Yeah.
Not realizing that if they keep going, what could be on the other side.
Absolutely. My friend Matt Blum, he has a book. It's called Failing Upwards. It's the tagline is called The Tales of a Glorified Button Pusher. He talks about how you learn so much more in the failure of your life than you do from just everybody handing you something. So it's like if you win the lottery, you don't learn anything. You just get handed a bunch of money, and then you're like, what do I do with this? It's the same thing with having grit and tenacity. It's what builds you. I was literally before you even brought it up, when you were first talking, I was like, I remember the days where you were going to SMU to get your doctorate, and you're like, I'm gonna be a principal. I don't care what nobody says. I'm gonna be a principal. And I'm like, hey, dude, you're gonna make an amazing principal. I want to be a superintendent. I'm like, dude, you're gonna kill a school district. Like, all these children gonna love you. They'll be like, that's Dr. Mason. But nah, to see where you are from 2015, 2016, all the way to 2025, that's 10. Dang, it's been 10 years. Dang.
I know.
That's crazy.
It is insane.
Jeez, that's wild. 10 years later, to see like what you're doing, to see you flourishing and blossoming in New York City, in Brooklyn particularly, it's amazing. Like, I mean, all I can say is like, look at God.
Yeah, the trajectory of my life, like, I am astounded at times at how things have taken off. And I wholeheartedly attribute it to God, and humbled and blessed. And I do not take any of it for granted whatsoever. And a lot of times people ask, well, how do you do it? How do you do it? And sometimes I can't necessarily articulate it. And I simply say, I just do, because I get up and I do the work. I just do it. I just get up and I do the work. Are there hard days? Yes. Are there days when I don't want to? Yes. But I know that if I want to have these goals, no one else is going to do the work. And so I have to.
Exactly. We were made to do hard things, people.
Yes.
Like,
yes, we were.
We were made to do hard things. So like you can do it. Whatever it is. If it's, in my case, learning how to code full stack to build an entire platform to give to the world, which is what I'm currently doing.
I love that.
Oh God, it's so hard. Oh my God, it's so hard. It's like learning. I'm learning Portuguese. It's like learning a different language because it's so hard. And then you throw in raising children and having a social life. And then life be life. It's
life be life.
Too much. It's too much. That's the theme of this podcast. Life be life. But I know what I want. And like, obviously me waking up every day, the Lord's trying to tell me something to prepare me for something. So I'm here. Yeah, man. So while we wrap this thing up, we're getting close to time, but I want to be respectful of your time. Tell the listeners about Ralph Avenue businesses.
Yeah. So this is really cool. So when I opened up, I was like, okay, there are lots of ways to get the word out about a new business. And so I created these little flyers. I'm trying to see if I have one on the desk around here. And I went up and down Ralph Avenue to each of the little small businesses. Like, hey, I'm a new yoga studio opening up. Is it okay if I leave a few of my flyers here so that some of your patrons, they see it, they realize we're in the neighborhood? And so I went to several of them. One of those businesses was a cookie company called Sophia and Grace's Cookies. I met Shalonda, who is the business owner there, and she welcomed me with open arms immediately to the community, allowed me to put my little flyers there. I tried out her cookies. They're amazing. And she also has vegan options, which is really cool. It's really dangerous to have a cookie shop that I walk by every single day because it's right there on my way to my studio. But Shalonda, and this was back in the summer, she was like, and I want to start a merchants association for this block, for Ralph Avenue, where we're located, because it's super important. We see other streets that are blossoming, that are flourishing, that are doing well, and there's no reason that Ralph Avenue can't do the same. And I was like, ooh, count me in. When you do that, I want to be a part of that because I'm all about building community. And we know that we are better together. And so just this January, Shalonda organized a meeting where a lot of the small business owners from Ralph Avenue, our corridor here in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, between Broadway and Fulton, we got together at a local small bank that really supports small businesses. And we began talking about what can this look like and how can we be in community together as entrepreneurs and business owners to build up our corridor on Ralph Avenue for our community. We had barbershop owners and hairstylists. We had clothing brands and clothing stores, and just lots of restaurants and coffee shops, lots of other businesses. Almost all of them that I patronage because they're right here on my corridor myself. And it's great to be in community. And so we are starting our merchants association. We're learning from each other, but we're tapping into a number of resources for entrepreneurs and small business owners and organizations that help us to create a charter and to have bylaws. And we have our officers now. And we're really going to be promoting community and promoting each other on Ralph Avenue to make it be the place to be, because there's lots of great things that are on Ralph Avenue right here in Bed-Stuy. I'm super excited to be a part of those great things. And like, I feel like it's all come at the right time because we're one of the newer businesses on Ralph. The cookie shop, for example, has been there for 8 years. One of those clothing brands I mentioned has been a staple in Bed-Stuy for 15 years. And it's so funny. I was purchasing from that merchant before I moved to Bed-Stuy because I'm like, oh, that stuff is hot. And I think when you think about Bed-Stuy, Bed-Stuy is world renowned because of hip hop music and because some of the people who came from Bed-Stuy. Jay-Z is a product of Bed-Stuy. Biggie is a product of Bed-Stuy, for example. And so we just want to create an incredible fabric of these small businesses on Bed-Stuy that are Ralph Avenue businesses. We like to call it RAB for short.
I love it. That's amazing. Man, I wish the Shalonda, that's her name? Shalonda. I wish her cookies, like in the little news article you sent me, her cookies look amazing. I was like, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they're not Levain cookies, but I mean, what is?
But it's a small Black owned business that I'm super happy to support.
Absolutely. I mean, you gotta support your small Black owned businesses.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it. So what's next for Dr. Mason and Noir Yoga?
I'm going to continue focusing on creating the best experience for our community members as possible at our current location. But Lord willing, we'll start looking at a second location, and opening up a second location, and just kind of expanding. One of the interesting things is, as most folks probably know, space in New York City is a premium. And so we're in a relatively small studio. And it would be nice to find another space that's a little bit larger and where we can service more of our community members. And so hopefully that's on the horizon. In the meantime, I'm going to continue to build our brand, build brand awareness, so that when we do expand, people could have already heard about who we are and what we can provide for our community. And I'm super excited about that.
I love it. Are you going to second location? Are we staying in Brooklyn? Are we traveling to Queens? Are we going to Harlem? Where are we going?
Yeah, great question. So I do envision the second location, depending on, the space we're able to find, it will either be again in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, or we might go up to Harlem. So just whichever location I can find first that really speaks to the needs that we have to open a yoga studio.
For sure. Don't forget my good family out there in Jamaica, Queens, off of Merrick Avenue.
All right.
Don't forget them. I love Jamaica. That's where family's from. Jamaica, Queens. Shout out. By all means, I wish you in Noir Yoga so much success. Like, what you're doing is, one, inspirational. Two, it's amazing. I mean, the fact that you're catering to us primarily, it's amazing, because not too many businesses, especially in the current state of where we are as a country, diversity, inclusion, that's not really a thing anymore, or they're trying to not make it a thing. But like the fact that there are places that still cater to Black people of color, like, bro, I have to give you your props. I always give you props, but I have to give you props forever on the internet, that you are amazing at what you do, man. And you're a true inspiration.
Thank you. Thank you for just allowing me to share my story, to talk about this amazing journey that I've been on with Noir Yoga, and kind of spreading the word to others. It's just super exciting. I'm super grateful. I've always loved your podcast. When you relaunched, I was like, oh, this is amazing. This conversation has been a long time coming. And so I'm happy we were able to make it happen.
Dude, I'm grateful that you did say yes, because when I had my old podcast, it was like a no based on the situation. It didn't have anything to do with anything. It was just random. But like this was intentional. This was crafted just for people to just get a little more of creativity. And I think you have inspired so many people today just by you being yourself. It's amazing. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, honestly, that is definitely as I'm getting older, I continuously think about the mark I want to leave on the world and the ripple that I want to have, where I won't see the end result. And it's always about making people better. And I hope when I'm no longer here, there are folks who can say that I inspired them in a small way and made their lives better. Then that would have made my life worth living.
Absolutely. To leave a legacy that outlives you, one of the greatest things you could ever do. To leave a mark. That's what I would love to do. To leave a mark, to leave a lasting impression for the generation that follows, and so on and so forth. It's one of the greatest joys and honors that a person can have. If the people want to, or are ever in New York, or flying to Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, or just, want to support Noir Yoga, how can the good people of the internet find you?
Yeah, you can definitely connect with me in the studio on Instagram. That might be the best way. The studio's Instagram is Noir Yoga BK. And you can connect with me. My Instagram is Dr. Mason Mason.
Dr. Mason Mason. The name's so nice. He's got it twice. Bro, I absolutely love this conversation. Every bit of it. We could honestly talk forever, but people would tune off halfway through and be like, and then they'd miss out on all the glorious nuggets. Bro, I'm so appreciative. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your story.
No, thank you for thinking of me seriously. It was such an honor to be a part of this new journey that you're on as well.
Oh, bro, I'm grateful. I'm thankful. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. More fun, more creativity. All right. Peace.